The air is thick enough to chew. It tastes of hot tar from the dockyards, of salt from the bay, and the sweet, cloying rot of garbage baking in the alleyways. You can feel the sweat trickling down the back of your neck, a single bead of moisture tracing a path through the fine layer of dust that coats everyone and everything in this city of wood and brick. Distant hammers ring out a steady, anxious rhythm. The sound of men building walls, of a city frantically trying to armor itself against the inevitable. This is the sensory cocktail of a revolution on the verge of boiling over, the living, breathing moment where an idea is about to become a war. And tonight, we're going to step right into the heart of it, into the sweltering, heart-stopping summer of 1776. We'll be navigating the birth of a nation not through the sanitized lens of a history book, but from a perspective that is, well, let's just say a perspective you probably won't survive. This is a story about how the lofty ideals of freedom feel to someone on the ground, someone whose greatest fear isn't attacks on tea, but the sudden, earth-shattering tremor of a cannonball finding its home. It's a reminder, I suppose, that history isn't just a collection of dates and famous names. It's a terrifying, confusing, and deeply personal experience. So, before you get too comfortable in your own time, maybe take just a second to like the video and subscribe. But really, only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. I always love to see where you all are listening from, so feel free to post your location and local time down below. It's a nice way to feel connected across the miles. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft ambient hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel a tremor beneath the worn soles of your moccasins. It's faint, more a vibration felt in your bones than a sound heard with your ears. A distant cannon blast? Or maybe just a heavy supply wagon rumbling over the cobblestones a few streets away. You can't be sure. Nobody can. The entire city of New York is holding its breath, a collective pause that stretches for days, weeks. The news of that grand declaration from Philadelphia has trickled through the streets, but the celebratory bells were tinny, their peals barely managing to cut through the thick blanket of anxiety that has settled over the island. The weight of this revolution is a physical presence now. A pressure in the air that makes your lungs feel tight. This is your story, your summer of 1776. You need to move. The open space of the street feels too exposed, too vulnerable. You press forward, your shoulder nudging past a stout merchant whose linen shirt is soaked through with sweat, his face a mask of patriotic fervor. You duck under the arm of a printer's apprentice, his hands still stained with ink. The entire city, it seems, has converged on this single patch of scorched grass and packed earth known as the Common. You're being carried by a human river, all flowing toward a single point, a makeshift wooden platform where a man is shouting into the humid evening air. You find yourself at a public reading of Thomas Paine's Common Sense. The speaker, a lanky man with a wild halo of reddish hair, doesn't just read the words. He bellows them, he spits them, he preaches them like a gospel of defiance. His voice cracks with passion as he speaks of tyrants and liberty, of a continent casting off the shackles of a distant, indifferent island. O ye that love mankind, ye that dare oppose, not only the tyranny but the tyrant, stand forth. Quote, the words are a current, and they jolt through you. For a moment, you let yourself be swept away. This is it. This is the feeling everyone has been chasing, the righteous fire, the intoxicating certainty. A spark of it ignites within you, a bright, optimistic flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, words can be stronger than warships. That this collective roar of defiance can actually build a new world. It's an annoyingly persistent optimism you carry, a belief that things, eventually, must turn out for the best. But then, the tremor returns. Not in the ground this time, but in your mind. As the speaker's voice rises to a crescendo, the scene before you wavers, melts at the edges. The cheering faces of the crowd blur into a canvas of screaming mouths. The passionate words about freedom are drowned out by a phantom sound. The high-pitched whistle of incoming artillery, followed by the deafening crack of splintering wood and shattering lives. You can almost smell it, the acrid smoke mixed with the chalky, suffocating dust of pulverized plaster. You see a vision of chaos in these very streets, of bodies lying where these patriots now stand, of families, a family, huddled in the dark damp of a cellar, hands clamped over their children's ears, praying to a God who seems to have abandoned the sky above them. The vision passes as quickly as it came, leaving you breathless, your heart hammering against your ribs. The cheering of the crowd sounds different now, brittle, naive. This is your curse, the thing that makes you so close-minded in the eyes of others. They see a glorious future. You see the bill that has to be paid to get there, and you see it in blood and rubble. The speaker finishes, his arm raised in a triumphant fist. The crowd erupts, a wave of sound that feels more like a prelude to a riot than a celebration. Men are clapping each other on the back, their faces flushed. Women are weeping with a strange, fierce joy. And in the midst of it all, you feel utterly, terrifyingly alone. Your eyes scan the throng, searching for an anchor in the sea of revolutionary glee. You find one. Leaning against the wall of a nearby tavern, arms crossed over his chest, is Samuel Miller, your neighbor. His face, usually a study in calm, meticulous concentration, is drawn and tight. He isn't watching the speaker, he's watching you. His gaze is sharp, analytical, the way an engineer looks at a structure for signs of weakness. He knows. He doesn't know what you just saw, not exactly, but he knows the shadow that haunts you. He's the one who argues with you about fortifications, about angles of fire and the thickness of earthworks. He's a perfectionist, convinced that survival is a matter of precise calculation. You believe survival is a matter of luck, and you hate that he's always trying to solve you like one of his equations. He gives you a short, almost imperceptible nod, a silent question. Are you all right? You look away, unwilling to answer. His concern feels like another cage. Your gaze continues its sweep, and that's when you see the shadow. It's a fleeting thing, a patch of darkness that detaches itself from the deeper gloom of an alleyway. A man slips into the edge of the crowd, his uniform the unfamiliar green and red of a foreign soldier. A Hessian. One of the thousands of mercenaries the British king has hired to crush this little rebellion. His presence is an immediate chill, a splash of cold reality on the hot-blooded fervor of the crowd. Most people don't notice him, too lost in their celebration. But you do. You watch him, and he's not what you expected. The stories paint them as monsters, as unthinking brutes. This man, Barnabas Hill, though you don't yet know his name, is just still. He stands with a strange, quiet calm, his shoulders slightly stooped. He looks shy, almost, out of place. His eyes, however, are another story. As they drift over the celebrating colonists, they are not filled with malice or contempt. They are cold, dispassionate, and deeply, unnervingly calculating. He looks at the joyful crowd the way a wolf looks at a flock of sheep, not with anger, but with a simple professional assessment of the task ahead. He seems uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, as if the very sound of the cheering, the very idea of common sense, is a physical irritant to him. His gaze continues its slow, methodical pan, and for a terrifying second, it lands on you. It's a brief, fleeting connection, but it's enough. In that instant, you see the opposite of your own desperate optimism. You see a calm acceptance of the violence to come. He is the premonition made flesh. He is the quiet man who will bring the chaos you fear. His eyes flick away, and he melts back toward the shadows, but the cold spot he left on your soul remains. The celebration is over. The real work is about to begin. The crowd dissolves around you, a river splitting into 1,000 frantic streams. The shared energy of the moment evaporates, leaving behind only the humid air and a personal, chilling residue from the Hessian's gaze. You don't follow Samuel, who is already striding purposefully toward the skeletal framework of a new redoubt on the edge of the common. You don't want his questions, his pragmatic dissections of your fear. Instead, you turn and melt into the maze of back alleys. The shadows a more comfortable companion than the boisterous patriots. The days that follow bleed into one another, each hotter and more tense than the last. The Hessian's presence was a harbinger. Soon, the horizon is no longer empty. It glitters with a terrible beauty. A forest of masts belonging to the largest fleet the world has ever seen. The British have arrived. The distant rumble you once mistook for a wagon becomes a permanent feature of the landscape. The low, guttural growl of a great beast stirring in its lair. It's the sound of cannons being tested on Staten Island, a percussive reminder of what is to come. The city you walk through is no longer a place of commerce and living. It is a fortress in the making. Towering elms that once provided shade are felled, their noble corpses dragged through the streets to form the jagged teeth of barricades. The laughter of children is replaced by the rhythmic thud of mallets driving stakes into the earth, and the grating shriek of shovels on stone. Men with more bravado than training drill in the public squares, their movements clumsy, their faces a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. You see the hope in their eyes, the fire lit by Payne's words, and a part of you, the bright, infuriatingly optimistic part, wants to share in it. You want to believe that these hastily dug trenches and wooden walls will be enough, but your close-minded certainty, the curse of your premonitions, sees only the gaps. You see earthworks built at the wrong angle, fields of fire obscured by a tavern, barricades that would turn to splinters under a proper volley. You see the war, not as these men do, a glorious clash for freedom, but as a series of brutal, unforgiving calculations. And the sum you arrive at always ends in rubble and screams. This constant war within you, between the relentless hope that things can be better and the grim certainty of how they will get worse, is a private torment. It makes your own skin feel like a cage. The beast on the horizon finally attacks on a Tuesday. There is no warning. One moment you are watching a woman hang her laundry on a line strung between two tenements, the white sheets flapping like surrender flags in the salty breeze. The next, the air rips apart. A high-pitched whistle, a sound that seems to tear a hole in the sky, is followed by an earth-shaking crump. It's not distant this time. It's close. A geyser of dirt, brick dust, and black smoke erupts 3 streets over. The woman's laundry basket clatters to the ground. Then another whistle, and another. Panic is a contagion, spreading faster than fire. The frantic construction noise is replaced by a symphony of shrieks, the thunder of running feet, and the apocalyptic roar of cannon fire. You are not running blindly. The vision from the common is seared into your mind, a map leading you toward a fate you feel compelled to witness. You move against the tide of fleeing citizens, your moccasins silent on the chaotic cobblestones. A cannonball screams overhead, its passage a hot wind on your face, and smashes into the upper story of a brick house ahead. The building groans, then a section of the facade crumbles, raining brick and splintered timber onto the street. From the dust and ruin, a woman stumbles out, her face a mask of white powder, her voice a raw scream. "My children!" You are there before you even decide to be. You grab her arm, your touch steadying her. "Where?" You shout over the din. She points a trembling finger at the sagging doorway of her home. "The cellar! We have to get to the cellar!" You plunge into the choking dust of the house. Inside, 2 small children are huddled at the top of a steep set of wooden stairs, their faces frozen in silent terror. You scoop up the smaller one, a boy of about 4, and grab the hand of his sister. "Come on," you urge, your voice impossibly calm. "It's a game. We have to get to the bottom before the sky giants do." Quote, you guide them down into the cool, damp dark of the cellar, just as another blast shakes the very foundations of the house. Dirt sifts down from the ceiling, dusting your hair and shoulders. The mother follows, sobbing with relief as she gathers her children into her arms. The space is small, smelling of damp earth, potatoes, and fear. And you are not alone. In the flickering light of a single tallow candle, you see a familiar figure. Samuel Miller. He is wedged against the far wall, his back braced against the stone foundation, a heavy length of timber in his hands. He's trying to shore up a ceiling joist that has splintered from the impacts above. Dust coats his dark hair, and his precise, focused face is streaked with sweat. "Penina," he says, his voice strained with effort. He doesn't seem surprised to see you. "Help me with this. The main support is cracked. If we take another hit like that last one, he doesn't need to finish." You help him wedge the new timber into place, your muscles straining alongside his. For a moment, your purposes are aligned. A shared, desperate act of engineering against annihilation. The family huddles in the corner, a single trembling unit. The father has joined them, his face pale, his hands clamped over his wife's. Their whispered prayers are a fragile counterpoint to the percussive violence outside. Every whistle of an incoming shell makes them flinch, their bodies tightening in anticipation of the end. You see their faces, and they are the faces from your vision, etched with a terror so profound it feels ancient. You see the thin, fragile line between their breathing, huddling forms and the chaos that wants to pulverize them. Once the beam is secured, Samuel continues his work, meticulously checking the other supports, his perfectionism a strange, defiant form of worship in this crumbling temple. The little boy begins to cry, a thin, wailing sound that is somehow more piercing than the cannons. And that annoying, persistent optimism inside you takes over. It's a force of nature you can't control. You slide down to sit cross-legged on the dirt floor in front of the children. Shh, you say softly. Do you want to hear a story? It's not a story about giants in the sky. It's about a little rabbit, a very clever rabbit, whose ears were so sharp he could hear a fox breathing from the next valley over. Quote, the little girl's wide, terrified eyes fix on you. Samuel pauses his work, shooting you a look that is a mixture of disbelief and exasperation. The parents just stare, too lost in their own fear to comprehend what you are doing. It feels surreal, insane. Your own voice sounds foreign to you, a thread of absurd tranquility and a tapestry of destruction. But you keep talking. You tell them how the rabbit outsmarted the hungry fox not by running, but by being still, by listening to the world, by using his wits to lead the fox on a chase that ended with the predator tumbling into a blackberry patch. You make your voice quiet and conspiratorial, drawing them in. The little boy's sobs subside into hiccups. The girl leans forward, momentarily forgetting the shaking earth. You are building a fortification as surely as Samuel is, but yours is made of words. A flimsy shelter of narrative against a hurricane of reality. There is a lull in the bombardment. The sudden silence is heavy, ringing in your ears. In that quiet, you hear a scrape of boots on the cobblestones just outside. Your head snaps up toward the cellar's only source of light. A small, grime-caked grate set at street level. A shadow falls over it. A pair of polished black boots comes into view, then stops. Slowly, a figure crouches down. A face appears in the small opening, framed by the iron bars. It is him, Barnabas Hill. The Hessian's face is calm, impassive. The candlelight from below casts strange, dancing shadows on his features, making his stillness seem even more unnatural. He isn't looking at the terrified family or at Samuel's desperate repairs. His cold, calculating eyes are fixed solely on you. He watches you there on the floor, surrounded by the children you were just comforting. He sees the entire scene, the fear, the defiance, the fragile hope of your story. There is no flicker of pity in his gaze, no anger, no remorse. There is only a quiet, professional assessment. It is the look of a man confirming an intelligence report, of a wolf cataloging the inhabitants of the sheepfold before the slaughter. The connection lasts only a few seconds, but it stretches into an eternity. You see in his eyes the confirmation of your deepest fears. He is the quiet man who will stand by and watch the world burn. He is the embodiment of the bill that is coming due. Then, as silently as he appeared, he is gone. The square of light from the grate is empty again. The only sounds are the girl's soft breathing and the dripping of water somewhere in the darkness. The silence outside stretches on, a held breath. You have survived the barrage, but as you look at the faces of the family you have comforted, you know with a chilling certainty that the war has just found you, and the shadow you saw at the window will be back. The bombardment stops. The silence that rushes in to fill the void is a physical thing, pressing on your eardrums, heavier than the thunder that preceded it. The family in the corner slowly uncurls, their movements stiff and tentative, as if they expect the world to shatter again at any moment. The mother's sobs have subsided into ragged, hitching breaths. The little girl, whose hand you still hold, looks from your face to her mother's, her eyes dark pools of confusion. It's over, Samuel says, his voice flat. He runs a hand through his dusty hair, dislodging a small shower of plaster. His perfectionist eye is already scanning the damage, calculating the stress on the newly braced joist, moving past the human cost to the structural equation for now. The father helps his wife to her feet. He approaches you, his face a mess of gratitude and shock. I don't know how to thank you. You saved them. You saved us. You pull your hand gently from the little girl's grasp and stand up, brushing the damp earth from your leggings. The cellar saved us, you say, your voice clipped. The words feel hollow. You weren't saving them. You were just narrating the final moments, trying to put a comforting lie between them and the inevitable. That annoyingly optimistic part of you had taken over, a reflex you couldn't control. But the cold reality of the Hessian's face at the grate chills you to the bone. You saved nothing. You merely postponed. You don't wait for Samuel. You climb the cellar stairs and step out into what's left of the street. The air is thick, with the smell of scorched wood and something else, a coppery, metallic tang that coats the back of your throat. The city is wounded. Houses stand with gaping holes torn in their sides, their interiors exposed like dissected animals. A dead horse lies in the middle of the street, its legs tangled in the wreckage of a cart. People are emerging slowly, cautiously, from their hiding places, their faces pale and smeared with soot. In the days that follow, the physical rubble is slowly cleared, but a new, invisible wreckage takes its place. The shared, defiant spirit you felt on the common has fractured into a million sharp-edged pieces of fear. Paranoia becomes the air you breathe. It's in the way a baker looks at a customer paying with a coin bearing the king's face. It's in the sudden silence that falls over a tavern when a stranger enters. Rumors, venomous and fast-moving, slither through the alleyways and marketplaces. "They say General Howe has a list," a man whispers, his eyes darting around as he stacks splintered firewood. "A list of every man who cheered for Paine. They'll be rounded up, hanged as traitors." Quote, "It wasn't the ships that hit this street," a woman confides over her fence, her voice low and urgent. "It was sabotage. Loyalists, right here in the city, marking the houses of patriots with chalk for the gunners." Quote, "You see people scrubbing frantically at their doorposts, trying to erase marks that were never there. The enemy is no longer just the forest of masts in the harbor. He is your neighbor, your friend, the man you share a ration of bread with." The tales from Long Island are the worst. A catastrophic defeat, whole regiments of inexperienced boys vanishing into the smoke and chaos of the battle. The stories grow, with each telling, the British becoming 10-foot giants, the Hessians becoming blood-drinking monsters. You know what a Hessian looks like. He looks quiet. He looks calm. He looks at you like you are already a ghost. That image is more terrifying than any of the wild stories. Then comes the other enemy, the one that doesn't need a cannon or a bayonet. It arrives silently, carried on the water, breeding in the filth of the overcrowded camps and overflowing gutters. It starts as a fever, a deep weariness that settles into the bones. They call it camp fever, a soldier's sickness. But soon, it has another name, typhoid. It sweeps through the city like a grass fire. The heat of late summer presses down, trapping the stench of sickness, of unwashed bodies and human waste, under a thick, suffocating blanket. The brave clang of hammers on fortifications is replaced by the hacking coughs of the sick and the thin, desperate ringing of a single church bell tolling another death. Death is no longer a spectacular, explosive event. It is a slow, quiet, methodical process. It is a young militiaman from Connecticut, his face flushed with fever, staring at the ceiling and babbling about green fields back home. It is a mother, healthy a week ago, now too weak to lift her head, her skin dotted with faint, rose-colored spots. This, too, is the bill for freedom. This slow, stinking, undignified decay. Your grim certainty tells you to run, to leave this dying city to its fate. But your infuriating optimism, that stubborn weed, pushes you in the opposite direction. You find yourself in a makeshift hospital set up in a large warehouse by the docks. The air inside is a physical assault, but you walk into it. You find a bucket and a rag. You start at the nearest cot. You don't have medicines. You only have cool water from a thankfully deep well, clean rags and stories. You dab a young boy's forehead, his skin burning to the touch. You murmur to him not the story of the clever rabbit this time, but of the great bear who slept through the harshest winter and awoke to the spring thaw, stronger than before. You spoon water between cracked lips. You sit with the dying so they are not alone. It is a small, almost pointless act in the face of so much suffering, but it is a fortification you can build. A wall of presence against the void. One afternoon, while trying to get a delirious soldier to drink some broth, you see Samuel. He stands at the entrance to the warehouse, his face a mask of controlled fury. He's not looking at the individual sick. He's looking at the system and seeing only catastrophic failure. He's been trying for a week to get the Committee of Safety to organize proper sanitation details, to dig latrines far from the water pumps, to mandate the use of lime to cover the filth. He carries schematics and plans, logical solutions to a problem that has spiraled far beyond logic. He spots you and strides over, his boots making sharp, angry sounds on the grimy floor. "What are you doing?" he demands, his voice a low growl. "What does it look like I'm doing?" You reply, not looking up from the soldier. "It looks like you're wasting your time. Comforting one man when 1,000 will be dead by next week, because the water is poison. We need to dig new wells. We need to enforce discipline. We need to burn the contaminated bedding, not just tell stories. The contempt in his voice is sharp. He sees your actions as sentimental nonsense, a distraction from the real, solvable problem. You finally look up at him, your eyes meeting his over the sickbed. And are they listening to you, Samuel? Are your plans and your perfect angles stopping this? You gesture around at the rows of miserable cots. They are scared and they are dying. Your logic can't fix that. Sometimes, all you can do is be still and listen to the world with them until it's over. Quote, his face tightens, the muscles in his jaw working. He sees your stubbornness as a refusal to face facts, a close-minded rejection of his practical solutions. He thinks you're a fool, and you think his perfectionism is a kind of blindness, a shield against the messy, unsolvable reality of human suffering. He turns without another word and stalks out, back to his war of diagrams and trenches, a war he is clearly losing. You watch him go, a familiar ache of frustration and loneliness settling over you. You turn back to your patient, ready to dip the rag in the cool water again. As you do, your eyes drift to the far side of the square outside the warehouse doors. And you see him. Barnabas Hill stands half-hidden in the shadow of a cooper's shop. A cart is rumbling by, piled high with bodies wrapped in threadbare blankets, their limbs stiff at unnatural angles. He is not watching the cart. He is watching the entrance to the warehouse. He is watching you. His posture is the same as it was on the common, still, patient, somehow apart from the chaos around him. His face is devoid of pity for the sick, of triumph at the patriot's plight, of any discernible emotion at all. He is simply observing. His gaze sweeps over the scene, the death cart, the desperate activity in the makeshift hospital, the look of frustrated fury on Samuel's face as he strides away. He is an anatomist dissecting the slow death of the city, noting every symptom of its collapse. His eyes find yours across the grimy expanse of the square. It's the same connection from the cellar grate, a silent, chilling acknowledgement. In his dispassionate gaze, you see it all woven together. The bombardment, the rumors, the disease. They are not separate tragedies. They are a single, coordinated campaign. He isn't just an enemy soldier. He is a witness to your city's unraveling. A calm, patient professional who knows that a fortress rots from the inside long before its walls are ever breached. He holds your gaze for a long moment, then gives a slight, almost imperceptible dip of his head. It is not a nod of greeting. It is a nod of confirmation. Yes, it seems to say. This is how it is done. Then he turns and melts back into the shadows, leaving you with the cold, absolute certainty that your personal curse, your vision of the bill for this revolution has a name, and he is watching you pay it. The Hessian is gone, but the impression of his face remains, burned onto the inside of your eyelids like a sunspot. You turn back to the sick soldier, your hands moving with a mechanical steadiness you do not feel. You spoon the last of the broth into his mouth. He swallows, a flicker of awareness in his fever-bright eyes. "Thank you," he whispers, the words a dry rasp. Your own optimism feels like a mockery in the face of the calm, professional cruelty you just witnessed at the warehouse door. Barnabas Hill isn't a monster who enjoys suffering. He's an accountant, and this city's misery is just a number in his ledger. You leave the warehouse an hour later, stepping out into the jaundiced light of the late afternoon. The confrontation with Samuel, followed by the silent encounter with the Hessian, has left a bitter taste in your mouth. You need to walk. You move through the wounded streets, past patrols of nervous militiamen and carts carrying the sick. The city feels brittle, a single entity holding its breath, waiting to see if the next moment will bring salvation or ruin. You turn a corner, and the smell of baking bread, rich and warm, cuts through the stench of sickness. It's a scent so normal, so full of life, that it's jarring. A small crowd is gathered outside a baker's shop, the one with the faded sign of a wheat sheaf swinging over the door. The mood is tense. A portly man in a fine waistcoat and powdered wig, a man whose face you've seen in the company of known loyalists, is jabbing a finger at the baker. "The king's officers require fresh bread," the man says, his voice loud and imperious. "They will pay you handsomely for your entire stock, double the usual rate." The baker, a broad-shouldered man with flour dusting his thick arms and eyebrows, doesn't flinch. He stands in his doorway, blocking the entrance. "My stock is for the city," he says, his voice a low rumble. "And my price is 3 pence a loaf. Same as yesterday. Same for a general or a journeyman." Quote, "This is sedition," the loyalist sputters, his face turning a blotchy red. "No," the baker says, crossing his arms. "It's bread." The crowd murmurs its approval. A woman nods grimly. A young apprentice spits on the cobblestones near the loyalist's polished boots. It's a small thing, a refusal to profit from panic, a simple declaration that a neighbor's hunger is not a business opportunity. But in a city being starved into submission, it is an act of war. The loyalist, seeing he has no support, huffs and stalks away, muttering threats. The baker turns and begins handing out loaves to the waiting line, each transaction a quiet confirmation of his defiance. You watch him, and for the first time since seeing the Hessian, a tiny, stubborn spark of warmth ignites in your chest. You continue your walk, the spark growing. You see it elsewhere, too, in the alleys and squares. You see a carpenter using his precious supply of nails, not to board up his own windows, but to repair the sagging gate of a neighbor whose husband is off with the army. You see two families on a tenement stoop, combining their meager rations, a handful of beans from one, a small bag of cornmeal from the other, to make a single shared pot of stew. These are not grand gestures. They are the 1,000 tiny threads of community being rewoven, even as the larger tapestry is ripped apart. They are fortifications of a different kind, ones Samuel with his diagrams could never measure. A few days later, the sound of a horse galloping at full tilt cuts through the city's exhausted hum. A lone rider, his face caked in mud and his horse lathered in sweat, thunders onto the common, reining his mount to a dramatic halt. He holds up a dispatch. "Victory!" he screams, his voice raw with exhaustion and elation. "A victory at Harlem Heights. We've pushed them back. Washington's boys pushed the redcoats back." Quote. The news is an electric shock. A stunned silence hangs in the air for a single heartbeat, and then the city erupts. A ragged, disbelieving cheer swells into a roar. People pour out of taverns and houses, their faces alight with a hope you had thought was extinguished forever. Men throw their hats in the air. Strangers embrace. For a moment, the fever, the fear, the shadow of the fleet in the harbor, it all vanishes. You find yourself swept up in the jubilant crowd, carried toward the newly dug well on the east side of the common. It's one of Samuel's projects. For weeks he had argued, pleaded, and bullied the Committee of Safety, using his charts and calculations to prove that the old pumps were contaminated. Now his work is complete. A new, deep well, lined with stone and capped with a heavy wooden lid, stands as a testament to his relentless logic. A line has formed, and men are working the pump handle, sending gushes of clear, clean water, splashing into buckets. You see him there, directing the process, Samuel Miller. He's showing a woman how to properly seat the lid to keep debris out. He looks tired, worn down, but his eyes have a fire in them you haven't seen before. This is his victory, too, a tangible, measurable success. He looks up and sees you in the crowd. His expression is guarded, but he gives you a short, sharp nod. You nod back. In this moment, there is no argument. His engineering and your stories are just different words in the same language of survival. The joy is infectious. It's a fever of a different kind, one that burns away despair. You see a group of children chasing each other around the well, their laughter a sound you realize you haven't truly heard in months. That annoying, persistent optimism inside you swells, demanding an outlet. You walk over and sit on the edge of the well's stone base, beckoning them closer. Have you ever heard the story of the first fire? You ask them. They gather around, their faces smudged with dirt, but their eyes bright with curiosity. The adults, waiting for their turn at the pump, listen in as well. "Long ago," you begin, your voice low and steady, a thread of calm in the joyful chaos. "The world was cold. The people had clothes and shelter, but no warmth for their hands, no light for the long nights. The fire was kept on a high mountain by the thunders, who guarded it jealously. Many brave warriors and swift runners tried to steal it, but the thunders always saw them and struck them down." Quote. You pause, letting the image settle. But there was one creature the thunders never watched. A tiny water spider. She was small, and they thought her weak. But she was clever. She spun a tiny bowl from her own silk, and she fastened it to her back. She walked on top of the water, a path no one else could take, all the way to the island where the fire mountain stood. She crept past the sleeping thunders, took one tiny glowing coal from their great fire and put it in the bowl on her back. She scurried all the way back, the coal glowing, and gave the fire to the people. It wasn't a great warrior who saved everyone. It was the smallest one, the one no one thought could do it, with a plan no one else had considered. Quote, "A little girl with wide, solemn eyes stares at you. She wasn't afraid?" "I think she was very afraid," you say softly. But she knew that being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you do what you have to do, even when you are. Quote, "A cheer goes up from the other side of the common. The celebration is growing, a wildfire of hope. You smile at the children, feeling the warmth of it yourself. This is what you fight for. This feeling, this moment. The belief that a single small coal of hope can be carried through the darkness. Then you hear it. It starts as a faint, high-pitched whine, a sound that cuts through the cheering like a shard of glass. The sound of a razor being drawn across the sky. Your head snaps up. Years of listening to the world have trained your ears, and you know this sound intimately. It's different from the low-altitude shots of the naval guns. This is coming from higher, farther. A mortar. The crowd falls silent, their joyful faces turning to masks of confusion, then terror. The whistle grows louder, closer, an unbearable crescendo. Then comes the impact. Backquote, backquote. It's not the sharp crack of a cannonball against brick, but a deep, hollow concussion a few blocks to the north, followed by the sound of shattering glass. Then another whistle. And another. They are bracketing the common. Panic erupts. The beautiful, unified hope of a moment ago shatters. The crowd scatters, screaming, people tripping over each other in a desperate scramble for cover. The buckets of precious, clean water are overturned, the life-giving liquid soaking uselessly into the dirt. And, through the chaos, another sound begins. The slow, methodical tolling of a church bell. Backquote, dong, 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 backquote. It's not a peal of alarm or a call to arms. It is a funeral bell. Someone has died of the fever. The bombardment is the spectacular, terrifying violence, but the bell is a reminder of the quiet, relentless enemy that never stops its work. The hope from Harlem Heights is ground to dust between the two millstones of mortar fire and disease. You stand frozen by the well as chaos swirls around you. The children you were just telling stories to are gone, pulled away by frantic parents. Samuel is shouting orders, trying to create some kind of order, to get people to move toward the most solid-looking buildings. His logic against a hurricane. Your eyes scan the rooftops of the buildings lining the square, a reflex you can no longer control. And there, a silhouette against the gray, smoke-palled sky, you see a figure. He is standing by a chimney stack, perfectly still, a spyglass to his eye. He is not looking at the panicked crowds or the sights of the mortar impacts. The spyglass is trained directly on the new well, on the heart of the celebration. On the exact spot where the city's hope had just burned its brightest. It's him, Barnabas Hill. He lowers the spyglass, and even from this distance you can feel the weight of his dispassionate gaze. He saw the joy, he saw the clean water, he saw your story, he saw the small, defiant act of survival. And he, or the men he commands, answered it with fire. He is not just an observer, he is a pruner, tasked with snipping off any bud of hope that dares to grow in this desolate garden. He turns, a shadow swallowed by other shadows, and is gone. The bell continues to toll. A woman screams nearby. The whistles of the incoming shells keen like birds of prey. You stand alone in the wreckage of the moment, the story of the water spider, a bitter ash in your mouth, chilled by the absolute certainty that your defiance has just made you a target. You don't run with the screaming crowd. Their panic is a wild, uncontrolled blaze, and you have always preferred the discipline of the slow burn. You move instead with a different kind of urgency, a chilling clarity that settles over you in the wake of the Hessians' silent declaration of war. You melt into an alley, the familiar embrace of its shadows, a welcome relief from the exposed horror of the common. The mortar shells continue their terrifying work, their impacts walking a line through the northern blocks, methodical and cruel. Each backquote, WHUH and backquote, is a punctuation mark in a sentence you can now read clearly. Any hope will be met with fire. The days that follow are a descent. The city, which had been wounded, is now being bled. The siege tightens not like a fist, but like a slow-working poison. The bombardment is no longer a constant roar, it has become more insidious. A shell might fall at noon, another at dusk, two in the dead of night. There is no pattern, no safe time. Sleep becomes a gamble. Every meal is taken with one ear cocked to the sky. The city's rhythm is shattered, replaced by a constant, low-grade terror that frays the nerves and hollows out the eyes. Food, once merely scarce, becomes a currency of desperation. The baker with the strong arms and steady price is gone, his shop a burned-out husk from a stray shell. Now a shriveled apple can buy you a man's loyalty, or a handful of flour can get you knifed in a dark alley. The enemy is no longer just the ships in the harbor or the mortars on the heights. The enemy is the gnawing in your own belly and the hungry stare of your neighbor. You see this new enemy baring its teeth one afternoon near the water pumps. A skinny cooper, a man known for his loud patriotic songs in the taverns, has a sack of potatoes slung over his shoulder, a small fortune. He's surrounded by a group of men, their faces gaunt, their eyes fever-bright with a mixture of sickness and starvation. "Where did you get those, John?" one of them asks, his voice dangerously soft. No one has potatoes, no one except the king's friends. "I had them stored," the cooper stammers, clutching the sack, "for my family." "Or for your friends on the ships?" another man snarls, stepping closer. "We saw you down by the docks last night, talking to someone in a boat. A spy's reward, is it?" Quote, "You know it's a lie. You saw the cooper yourself last night, helping shore up a wall that had collapsed on his neighbor's house. But you see the madness taking hold in the accuser's eyes. They don't want truth. They want potatoes. They want a target for their misery. You stay in the shadows of a doorway, your hand resting on the hilt of the knife at your belt. A year ago you would have stepped forward. A month ago even. Now you watch. You watch as the men close in, as the cooper's panicked denials are drowned out by their hungry rage. You watch as the sack is torn from his grasp, the precious potatoes spilling and rolling in the filth of the street as the men shove and fight over them like dogs. The cooper is left sobbing on the cobblestones, his patriotism no shield against starvation. This is the city now, a body consuming itself. You turn away, the scene leaving a cold knot in your stomach. Your own reserves are low. The salted fish you had is gone. The parched corn is nearly dust. That bright, infuriating optimism inside you feels like a distant memory, a story told to a child in another lifetime. Your close-minded certainty, the one that saw this coming, offers no comfort, only the bitter satisfaction of being right. You find yourself drawn back to the warehouse hospital, the one place where the suffering is so concentrated it almost feels honest. It is worse than before. The cots are full, and now men lie on straw pallets on the floor, their groans a constant, wretched chorus. The smell of death and disease is so thick you can taste it. Samuel is there. He isn't trying to organize or build anything anymore. He is on his knees, his engineer's hands made for precise drawings and load-bearing calculations, clumsily changing the soiled bandage on a young militiaman's leg. The wound is gangrenous. Samuel's face is a slate-gray mask of defeat. His systems have failed. His well is a target. His logic has been crushed under the sheer, illogical weight of human suffering. He doesn't even look up as you enter. You find a relatively quiet corner, where a young woman sits by her brother's cot. He's barely a man, his face flushed with the telltale spots of typhoid. The woman is weeping silently, her shoulders shaking. She looks up at you, her eyes empty. "He doesn't know me anymore," she whispers. "He keeps talking about a creek, about fishing. We're from the mountains. He just wants to go home." Quote, you sit on the floor beside her. You don't offer platitudes. You don't offer a story about a clever rabbit. The moment is too raw, too real for fables. "My people have a story about a journey," you say, your voice barely above a whisper, meant only for her. When one of us is dying, we don't say they are leaving. We say they are walking the path of stars back to the fire where we all began. It is not an end. It is a return. You look at the boy on the cot. He's not lost. He's just finding his way home. The story is different this time. It's not a tool. It is a piece of you, offered up in the darkness. The woman doesn't stop crying, but something in her posture changes. A subtle easing of the tension in her shoulders, as if you've helped her bear a fraction of an impossible weight. In the face of overwhelming horror, you have found the only thing left to do: share the burden of seeing. To bear witness, You realize that your optimism isn't about believing things will be fine. It is the stubborn, irrational insistence on finding a flicker of meaning, of connection, even as the world burns down. You stay there for what feels like hours, a silent companion in the dim, foul-smelling warehouse. As dusk bleeds through the grimy windows, a commotion outside snaps you to attention. Shouts, the crack of a musket. Not the boom of a cannon, but the sharp, personal sound of small arms fire. You rise and move to the doorway, peering out cautiously. Across the square, a group of Hessian soldiers has cornered a man against a wall. It isn't a battle, it's an interrogation, and directing it is Barnabas Hill. But he is not the calm, still observer you have seen before. His uniform is rumpled. His face is tight with frustration. He barks a question at the captured man in guttural German, and when the man only stares back in terror, Barnabas slams his fist against the brick wall next to the man's head. A Hessian lieutenant says something to him, a placating murmur, and Barnabas whirls on him, his voice a low, vicious snarl. This is new. The professional veneer has cracked. The pressure of this grinding, ugly siege, a war not of glorious charges but of starving out women and terrorizing children, is getting to him. The quiet, shy man is fraying. He is being pushed past his cold calculations into the hot, messy realm of anger. He turns back to the prisoner, his hand dropping to the pistol at his belt. And then he sees you. Across the square, framed in the dark doorway of the warehouse of the dying, his eyes lock onto yours. The connection is electric, a jolt of pure loathing. This time there is no professional assessment in his gaze. There is only a raw, personal fury. It is the fury of a man whose clean, orderly work has been complicated by a single, stubborn variable he cannot solve. He sees you, the storyteller, the comforter, the ghost who keeps appearing at the sites of his carefully managed destruction. He sees you as a symbol of the city's infuriating, illogical refusal to simply lie down and die. In his eyes, you are no longer just a target. You are an irritant, a personal failure. He holds your gaze, his hand still on his pistol. The air crackles. For a moment, you are the only two people in the world, a warrior of stubborn hope and a soldier of methodical despair, locked in a silent battle across a square full of ghosts. He takes a half step toward you, a motion of pure, unthinking aggression, before his lieutenant places a hand on his arm, pulling him back to the task at hand. Barnabas wrenches his eyes away from you, turning his fury back on the prisoner. But you have seen it. You have seen the crack in the foundation. He is not just a force of nature. He is a man. And you, a quiet woman armed with nothing but stories and a refusal to despair, have gotten under his skin. You slip back into the shadows of the warehouse, your heart hammering. The siege has intensified, the city is collapsing, but the nature of your war has just changed. It has become a duel. And a tense, angry man is a far more dangerous enemy than a calm, professional one. The Hessian's fury leaves a ringing in your ears, louder than the lingering echo of the musket shot. You slip back into the warehouse, your back sliding down the rough-hewn timber of the wall. The shared moment of hatred was as intimate as a touch, a dark and binding thing. He is no longer an abstract force, a professional wolf circling the fold. He is a man, and you have become the focus of his failing patience. This is more dangerous. A calm man calculates. An angry man breaks things. You press your palms against the cool wood, trying to still the tremor in your hands. Outside, the funeral bell begins to toll again. Dong dong dong, a slow, methodical heartbeat for a city in cardiac arrest. The sound scrapes against your raw nerves. The brief victory at Harlem Heights is a forgotten dream. The reality is this: a city trapped between the random, explosive terror of the mortars and the slow, silent siege of disease. The next few days are a blur of deepening twilight. The sun still rises, but it brings no warmth, only a hazy, feverish light that illuminates the city's decay. Resilience is a resource, and you see it being spent down to nothing. It's in the eyes of a woman who no longer bothers to sweep the dirt from her stoop. It's in the listless way a group of militiamen lean on their muskets, their patriotic fire banked to a dull ember. The enemy is winning, not by breaking the walls, but by breaking the will. You witness both the last embers of decency and the cold ash of despair. One morning, near the ruins of the baker's shop, you see an old man collapse, his legs simply giving out from hunger. Before the vultures of the street can descend, a young woman, the same one whose brother you sat with in the warehouse, darts out from a doorway. She kneels, lifts the old man's head, and presses a small, dirty piece of hardtack into his hand. It is likely all the food she has. The man's eyes flutter open, and he begins to chew with a desperate, slobbering intensity. It is an act of profound, reckless kindness, a tiny spark of light. But an hour later, in a narrow alley choked with refuse, you see the other side of the coin. Two boys, neither older than 12, are fighting with a feral intensity over a dead pigeon. They roll in the filth, kicking and biting, their small faces contorted with a grown man's desperation. There is no right or wrong, no good or evil, there is only hunger. You watch until one boy gets the bird and scurries away, leaving the other to weep with a raw, hopeless sound that seems to sum up the entire city. Your optimism and your certainty have become two wolves fighting inside you, and you no longer know which one to feed. You start to move differently through the city. The confrontation with Barnabas has made you a hunter. You are drawn to him, to the flaw you saw. You begin to watch his sector, a stretch of shattered warehouses and barricaded streets near the shipyard. You learn his patrol routes, the timing of the changing of the guard. You see his anger manifesting in small, brutal ways. He drills his men relentlessly, his voice a constant grating snarl. You see him strike a soldier for having a spot of mud on his boot. The other Hessians watch with sullen, fearful eyes. Their iron discipline is being corroded by their commander's personal fury. And then, one night, he makes a mistake. It's late. A sliver of moon hangs in the sky, casting long, skeletal shadows. You are perched in the gutted second story of a chandlery, overlooking a key intersection. A small guard post is tucked behind a barricade of overturned carts and barrels, covering a narrow lane that leads toward the wharves. It's a vital position. Barnabas arrives for his nightly inspection, his movements jerky and impatient. He finds the sergeant of the guard asleep at his post, his head lolling on his chest. The fury that erupts from Barnabas is a palpable force. It's not loud. It's a low, venomous tirade in German, a current of pure rage. He drags the terrified sergeant to his feet. He doesn't just reprimand him, he doesn't just have him flogged. In a fit of punitive madness, he orders the entire guard detail to abandon the post and march back to the main camp for punishment. He is making an example. His lieutenant argues, you can see his frantic gestures, pointing at the now empty guard post, at the dark lane it was meant to protect. Barnabas shoves him aside. He stands there alone for a moment, breathing heavily, staring at the empty post as if daring anyone to challenge his authority. Then he too turns and stalks off into the darkness, leaving the intersection completely undefended. Your heart is a drum against your ribs. It's an act of sheer, arrogant folly, a tantrum that has created a hole in the siege line. Through that hole you can see the dark, shimmering water of the East River. You can see a path, a way out. The knowledge is a lead weight in your gut. You could take it. Tonight, you could slip through the empty post, find a skiff tied at the docks, and be across the river to Long Island before dawn. You could leave this dying city, the sickness, the starvation, the tolling bell, all of it, behind you. You could save yourself. It is the logical choice. Your close-minded certainty screams at you that this city is doomed, that staying is suicide. But then you see the faces. The little girl in the cellar. The woman sharing her last piece of hardtack. The boy in the warehouse babbling about a fishing creek. Leaving means abandoning them. It means accepting the city's fate. And what if the path isn't just for escape? What if it's a way in? A small raiding party, a targeted strike, it could cause chaos, disrupt their command. It might be nothing. Or it might be the one thing that could shift the balance. It might be the story of the water spider, the small creature with a clever plan. The choice is a physical agony. Your instinct for self-preservation wars with that stubborn, annoying core of optimism that refuses to be extinguished. You stay in the ruined chandlery until the sky begins to lighten, a prisoner of your own indecision. Finally, you move. You don't go toward the river. You go toward the sound of a lone hammer, a defiant noise in the pre-dawn quiet. You find Samuel near the hospital, trying to repair the broken frame of a cot. He looks like a ghost. His perfectionist's energy is gone, replaced by a weary, dogged persistence. He works with his head down, his face etched with exhaustion and failure. "Samuel," you say softly. He looks up, his eyes hollow. He expects another argument, another clash between his logic and your mysticism. "Penina, come to tell me how stories will fix a broken cot?" His voice is brittle. "No," you say, moving closer. You squat down in front of him, forcing him to meet your gaze. "I came to tell you that Barnabas Hill is losing his mind." You tell him everything. You tell him about the growing rage, the public punishments. You tell him about the abandoned guard post, the open path to the river. You lay the tactical situation out for him with a cold precision that would impress him if he weren't so steeped in his own despair. He listens, his head tilted. The engineer in him slowly awakens, processing the information. "An undefended lane," he murmurs, his eyes losing their hollow look and gaining a flicker of analytical light. "For how long?" "He'll have it manned again by morning." "He left it empty out of spite," you say. "He might leave it empty all night to prove his point. He's proud. And he's angry." Quote, Samuel stands up, wiping his hands on hessian trousers. He paces a few steps, the old, familiar energy returning to his movements. "A raiding party. 50 men. We could slip them through, hit the Hessian command tent, seize their short-range artillery." He stops, turning to you. "We could get slaughtered." It's a desperate gamble based on the temper of one man. "All of this is a desperate gamble," you counter, your voice intense. "What's your logic telling you now, Samuel? To sit here and wait for the fever to take the rest of us? To wait for the next mortar to find this building? We are dying a slow death. This is a chance for a quick one, maybe, but it's a chance." He stares at you, and for the first time, he isn't looking at you like an unsolvable equation. He's looking at you like a fellow strategist. He sees the conflict in your eyes, the grim knowledge of the cost, and the wild hope of what could be gained. Your curse and your blessing laid bare. "You saw this," he says, and it's not a question. It's a statement. He doesn't mean you witnessed it with your eyes. He means you saw it, and that way you have that he doesn't understand but is finally starting to respect. You nod. "I saw a crack in the wall. You're the one who knows how to bring the whole thing down." Quote, a long silence stretches between you, filled only by a distant cough from the warehouse. The fate of the city hangs in this silence, in this shared moment between the woman who sees the world in stories and the man who sees it in schematics. "General Washington moved his headquarters north of the city after the Harlem Heights fight," Samuel says, his voice low and firm, his mind already working, calculating. "If we can get a message to him, if a company of rangers could be spared." He looks at you, his eyes sharp and clear. The despair is gone, replaced by the terrifying fire of purpose. He is a perfectionist, and you have just handed him the possibility of a perfect, desperate plan. "We have to try," he says. And in that moment, the choice is made. Not just by you, but by both of you. You will not save yourself. You will risk everything and everyone on the chance that a single reckless act of defiance can relight a fire that is almost out. You will feed the optimistic wolf and see if it has the strength to fight. The die is cast. The silence in the alley is a living thing, charged with the terrifying potential of your shared decision. Samuel's face, illuminated by the first gray hints of dawn, is no longer a mask of weary defeat. It is the face of an engineer who has just been given the most complex and dangerous problem of his life, and he is alive with it. The war for him is no longer about surviving the collapse. It's about preventing it. "A messenger," he says, his voice crisp. "It has to be someone who knows the back paths north, someone fast, and someone who won't be missed right away." His eyes scan the street, but you are already moving. You know who it has to be. You find him huddled with his family in the relative shelter of a burned-out print shop, the air still acrid with the ghost of scorched paper and ink. It's John, the cooper. The man the crowd had turned on, the man who had been accused of being a traitor for a sack of potatoes. His eyes are wary when he sees you, the memory of his public humiliation still fresh and raw. His wife pulls their 2 thin children closer. You don't mince words. You and Samuel lay out the plan, the risk, the microscopic chance of success. You watch his face, expecting fear or bitterness or a flat refusal. Instead, a slow, stubborn fire ignites in his eyes. He looks at his hungry family, then at the street where his neighbors had condemned him. "They called me a spy," he says, his voice rough. "They think my heart is with the king." He gets to his feet, his lanky frame unfolding. I'll show them where my heart is. I'll run your message. It is not a declaration of patriotism for a grand ideal. It is a fierce, personal reclamation of his own honor. He is your first unexpected ally, forged not in the fire of revolutionary fervor, but in the crucible of the city's own paranoid cruelty. The journey to the edge of the city is a silent, nerve-shredding crawl through a labyrinth of your own making. You lead, your moccasins making no sound on the rubble-strewn cobblestones. John follows, his Cooper's muscles making him surprisingly light on his feet. Samuel comes last, a brace of pistols tucked in his belt, his sharp eyes watching the rooftops, his mind a constant stream of calculations, angles, shadows, timing. You are a strange trinity, the seer, the builder, and the wronged man, moving as one through the guts of the dying city. You reach the abandoned guard post. The barricade of carts and barrels sits like a monument to Barnabas Hill's hubris. The lane beyond is a river of blackness leading to freedom, or a quick death. John looks at you, his face pale in the gloom. He gives a single, sharp nod. You clasp his shoulder, a silent transfer of hope and desperation. Then he is gone, melting into the shadows, a single brave man carrying the city's fate in a folded piece of paper. The waiting is the purest form of torture. The sun rises on another day of slow-motion dread. The mortars are silent, a mercy that feels more like a threat. But something has shifted. The secret of your desperate gamble, though unspoken, seems to hang in the air. When you return to the warehouse, you find that a small change has rippled outward from your decision. Samuel, galvanized, has become a force of nature. He is no longer just fixing a single cot. He has torn down internal walls in the warehouse, creating better airflow. He has organized the women, including the one who shared her hardtack, into a team, systematically boiling the rags used for bandages. He has taken an inventory of every tool, every nail, every scrap of salvageable timber. He barks orders, but there is no anger in them, only a fierce, focused urgency. And people are listening. Men you had written off as broken are now following his directions, their movements slow but purposeful. They are building new cots, digging a new latrine trench far from the well, their shared work a quiet rebellion against despair. You see the boys who fought over the pigeon hauling buckets of water, working side by side. They have found a new purpose, a new enemy to fight together. It's a fragile, desperate alliance, but it's real. The city is not just a body consuming itself. It is a body fighting the infection from within. 2 days pass. Hope begins to fray. The food is almost gone. The fever claims 3 more from the warehouse. You start to fear that John the Cooper was caught, that your gamble has failed, that you merely sent a good man to his death for nothing. Samuel's face grows tight again, the calculations in his eyes turning bleak. Then, on the 3rd night, it happens. A fog, thick and damp, rolls in from the harbor, swallowing the British fleet, muffling the city in a blanket of gray. And through the fog comes a sound, the gentle splash of muffled oars. You and Samuel stand on a dilapidated wharf, peering into the gloom. At first you see nothing. Then a shape emerges, a long, low barge, gliding like a ghost on the water. Behind it comes another, and another. They are not warships. They are simple supply barges, pulled by grim-faced men in homespun cloth. Rangers. Washington got the message. A collective breath is exhaled across the waterfront, a sound of disbelief turning to profound relief. There is no cheering. It would be suicidal. But a wave of silent, feverish activity erupts. A human chain forms, linking the barges to the shore. Sacks of flour, crates of salted fish, barrels of clean water, and precious boxes of medical quinine are passed from hand to hand. The work is swift, silent, and desperate. You find yourself standing shoulder to shoulder with the woman whose brother died, her face tear-streaked, but determined as she hefts a sack of flour. Samuel is everywhere, directing the unloading, his perfectionism ensuring not a single ounce is wasted, his voice the steady center of the controlled chaos. As the last crate is moved into a hidden storeroom, the first rays of dawn begin to pierce the fog. The barges melt away as silently as they came. The city has been given a transfusion. It is not a cure, but it is a reprieve. Later that morning, as a thin, watery stew is ladled out to a long, orderly line, You find yourself surrounded by the children again. They are still thin, their eyes still too old for their faces, but the edge of feral hunger is gone. They look at you, expectant. You lean back against the cool stone of Samuel's well. "I will tell you a story," you say, and the adults in the line quiet down to listen. It is not about a spider or a rabbit. It is about a river. Once, all the water in the world was in small streams, hidden in the mountains. They ran alone, and they were weak. A child could dam them with a handful of mud. A hot summer could dry them up completely. They thought they would always be alone. Quote. You pause, letting them picture the lonely streams. But one day, a little stream, a brave one who was tired of being thirsty, decided to try something new. It pushed its way over a ridge it had never crossed before, and there it found another stream. And the two of them, running together, were stronger. They could push bigger pebbles out of their way. So they kept going, and they found a third stream and a fourth. Soon, there were hundreds, then thousands of them, all joining together, moving in the same direction. They weren't just streams anymore. They had become a river, wide and deep and powerful. And that river carved its way through the mountains, it pushed aside the biggest boulders, and it brought life to the whole valley. No one remembered how small and weak the streams were when they were alone. They only saw the strength of the river they had become. Quote, you look from face to face. You see the old man who had collapsed, now eating his stew with a steady hand. You see the cooper's wife, a small, proud smile on her face. You see Samuel, who has stopped his work to listen, give you a look of grudging, absolute respect. Your optimism is no longer an annoying quirk. It is a tool, a weapon. It is the narrative that gives meaning to their survival. From a high window in a commandeered customs house 2 blocks away, Barnabas Hill lowers his spyglass. He saw the fog. He heard the muffled oars. He watched the entire silent, efficient operation. He sees the people now, not scrabbling for food like animals, but standing in an orderly line. He sees them listening to your story, their faces filled with a renewed, disciplined resolve. His fist does not tighten. His face does not contort with rage. His professional mask is perfectly in place, but his eyes are cold and still, like chips of winter ice. He has learned. He understands that this rebellion is not just a disorganized rabble to be crushed. It is a river, fed by 1,000 unexpected streams. And his calm, dispassionate gaze tells you he is no longer thinking about how to dam it. He is thinking about how to poison it at its source. The stew is thin, but it is hot, and it is shared. For the first time in weeks, the gnawing emptiness in your belly is replaced by a dull, pleasant warmth. This small, simple comfort feels more profound than any victory speech. You watch as the line of people, your river of survivors, disperses. They don't scurry back to their hiding places. They linger, talking in low voices, a man helping a woman lift a heavy water bucket, a child sharing a piece of her bread with another. The story of the river wasn't just words. It was a mirror, and now they see themselves in it. They are no longer scattered streams. They are one. The plan, born from your vision and Samuel's logic, takes shape in the hushed quiet of the following nights. The company of rangers who brought the supplies did not leave. They are ghosts in the city, hiding in cellars and burned-out lofts. Their long rifles a promise of a violence more precise and deadly than the clumsy drills on the common. Their commander, a wiry Virginian with eyes that seem to see right through you, listens intently as you and Samuel lay out the city's anatomy. You speak of shadows and sightlines, of the alleys that are a second, secret map of the city. Samuel speaks of structural weaknesses, of the angle of the earthworks around the Hessian command tent, of the exact spot where a charge could breach their perimeter. The Virginian listens to you both, a slight smile playing on his lips, as if seeing two halves of a single, brilliant strategist finally learning to speak the same language. The night of the raid arrives with the same thick fog that brought the barges. It is a gift, a shroud for your desperate purpose. You gather in the skeletal remains of a warehouse near the docks, the air electric with a silence that is louder than any war cry. The rangers check their rifles, their movements economical and sure. You stand among them, a strange figure in moccasins and leggings, your knife at your belt and your bow in hand. You are not one of them, but tonight your cause is the same. Samuel is there, a pistol in each hand, his face a pale, determined mask. He is no longer just an engineer. He is a defender, prepared to see his calculations through to their bloody conclusion. You move out, a serpent of silent men sliding through the fog-drenched alleys. You are the head of the snake, guiding them through the paths you know like the lines on your own hand. You pass the empty guard post, the monument to Barnabas's pride, and slip deep into enemy territory. The sounds here are different. The low murmur of German, the clink of a sentry's bayonet, the smell of their cook fires. Every shadow holds a potential threat. Your heart hammers a rhythm against your ribs, a frantic beat that seems to count down the final seconds of your life. The Hessian camp is a city within a city, a place of orderly tents and disciplined patrols. But tonight, their discipline is their weakness. They do not expect an attack from within. You lead the Rangers to the spot Samuel identified, a section of the barricade built with loose earth and poorly stacked barrels. At a signal from the Virginian, the Rangers move. There are no shouts, only the dull thud of bodies hitting the ground, the wet, sharp sound of knives finding their marks. The sentries are dispatched with ruthless efficiency. The hole is opened. You pour through the gap. Chaos erupts. The first volley from the Rangers' rifles rips through the night, a crackle of lightning that shatters the camp's sleepy order. Tents are riddled with shot. Men stumble out, confused, half-dressed, and are cut down before they can raise an alarm. Your own arrows fly, silent messengers of death, finding throats and chests in the flickering torchlight. You move through the mayhem, a phantom of vengeance, your mind strangely calm, your body a fluid instrument of the violence you once only foresaw. You see Samuel, no longer a man of diagrams, but a whirlwind of action. He moves from one captured cannon to the next, shouting at the Rangers, showing them how to spike the guns, ramming crowbars into the delicate firing mechanisms, destroying the very weapons that have terrorized your city. His perfectionism has found its ultimate expression not in building, but in unbuilding, in the precise and total dismantling of the enemy's power. Then, through the smoke and confusion, you see him. Barnabas Hill emerges from the large command tent, a pistol in one hand, his face a contortion of disbelief and pure, murderous rage. His professional calm is gone, burned away by the fires of your raid. He is not a cool observer now. He is just a man whose world is being torn apart. His eyes, wild and searching, sweep across the chaotic scene, and they find you. He screams your name, or a German curse that sounds like it, a raw, guttural sound of pure hatred. He raises his pistol, ignoring the Rangers fighting his own men around him. In that moment, the entire battle narrows to the space between you. The noise of the fight fades to a dull roar. It is only him and you. The quiet man and the stubborn woman. The despair and the hope. The bill and the payment. You have no time to raise your bow. You are frozen in that tableau of loathing. But you are not a solitary stream anymore. You are a river. A shadow moves beside you. Samuel, his face grimed with gunpowder, steps partially in front of you, raises his own pistol, and fires. The shot is deafeningly loud. Barnabas staggers back, clutching his shoulder, a dark stain spreading across his green uniform. His face is a mask of shock, not just from the pain, but from the sudden, impossible intervention. He stares at Samuel, then at you, a look of profound personal defeat in his eyes. He has been outmaneuvered, outthought, brought low not by an army, but by an engineer and a storyteller. Before anyone can fire again, two of his men grab him and drag him back into the swirling chaos of the command tent. The signal for retreat comes, a high whistle cutting through the din. The raid has accomplished its goal. The cannons are spiked. Their command structure is in tatters. You melt back the way you came, leaving a scene of fire, death, and confusion in your wake. The turning point has been reached not with the grandeur of a pitched battle, but in a bloody 5-minute brawl in the dark. You stand by the well on the common as the sun rises, casting a pale, clean light over the wounded city. The fog has burned off. The air feels different, lighter. News of the raid has spread like wildfire, and the atmosphere is not one of wild celebration, but of a deep, bone-weary, and determined satisfaction. The beast has been wounded, badly. It may not be dead, but it will think twice before it roars again. You touch the cool, smooth stones of the well, a tangible piece of Samuel's logic, and let the events of the past few months wash over you. You remember the faces of the sick in the warehouse, the thin, gasping breaths, the quiet dignity of the woman who sat with her brother as he walked the path of stars. You remember John the Cooper, the wronged man who found his honor in a suicidal run, a man whose sacrifice made tonight possible. His wife is now a widow, a stark reminder of the cost. The bill for this victory, like all the others, has been paid in blood and sorrow. Your grim certainty, the curse that let you see the price, was not wrong. But then you see the other faces. You see the children, now chasing a stray dog across the grass, their laughter no longer a fragile, forgotten sound. You see Samuel, across the square, talking with the ranger commander, their heads bent together over a captured map, already planning the next step, his perfectionism now a formidable weapon. You see the river of people, moving with a new purpose, their individual streams of hope and grief and resilience now flowing together as one. Your infuriating optimism, the belief that things could be better, was not wrong either. You look down at your hands. They are steady. You think of your own journey, from the woman haunted by visions of destruction to the warrior who helped orchestrate it. The war within you, between the seer of costs and the believer in hope, is over. You have finally understood that they are not two opposing forces. They are two eyes in the same head, and only by using both can you see the world clearly. To see the terrible bill is not to surrender to it. It is to understand the value of what you are fighting for. Your closed-mindedness has been forged into focus. Your optimism is no longer a naive dream. It is a conscious, deliberate choice. It is the story you choose to tell, not to hide from the darkness, but to navigate through it. You are Penina King. You have survived the summer of 1776. And, with a certainty that chills and warms you at the same time, that the war is far from over. But now, you know how to fight it. The ashes of the raid settle into the city's wounds. In the clear, sharp light of the following days, the victory feels less like a thunderclap and more like the breaking of a long and terrible fever. The delirium is past, leaving behind an exhausted, aching clarity. The city breathes again, but it is a shallow, careful breath, each lungful testing the air for the familiar taint of smoke or sickness. The enemy has pulled back, the main body of the Hessian and British forces moving north to consolidate, leaving the island of Manhattan in a state of suspended animation, not yet free, but no longer under active siege. The war has moved on, leaving you in its scarred and silent wake. You walk through the streets, and it is like walking through a landscape of memory. Every corner holds a ghost. There is the alley where the boys fought over the pigeon, now swept clean, the paving stones scrubbed by a new, fierce pride in shared space. There is the husk of the baker shop, its blackened timbers a stark monument to a time when a loaf of bread was an act of defiance. People are out, their faces no longer pinched with the constant grinding anxiety of an imminent shell. But the fear has left its watermark. They move with a new economy, a new awareness. No food is wasted, no water is spilled. They are a community that has stared into the abyss together, and they have been permanently changed by what they saw. You find yourself drawn to the Cooper's small house, a knot of obligation tightening in your chest. You expect to find the silence of grief, the drawn shudders of mourning. Instead, you find his widow, her name is Mary, on her knees in the small patch of dirt behind their home. She is not weeping. She is turning the soil with a broken spade, her two small children beside her, pulling weeds with a solemn focus. She looks up as you approach, her eyes red-rimmed but her gaze steady. She is wearing John's old leather apron. "The Rangers brought seeds," she says, her voice quiet but not weak. She gestures to a small cloth bag nearby. "Turnips," said "They'll grow fast." She plunges the spade into the hard-packed earth, her face set in a mask of grim determination. John always said a man has to make something. Said it was the only thing that mattered. I suppose it's my turn now. She doesn't thank you for your part in the raid. She doesn't blame you for her husband's death. Her grief is a private country, and she has chosen to build in it rather than be buried. Looking at her, at the fierce, protective love with which she guides her children's hands in the dirt, you see that the legacy of John's sacrifice isn't just an empty space at the table. It's this garden. It's the stubborn, relentless will to cultivate life on scorched earth. This, too, is a fortification. You leave her to her work and find Samuel by the river, his back to the city, staring at the empty expanse of water where the British fleet once sat like a forest of death. The air here is clean, salty. He has washed the gunpowder from his face, but it seems to have settled deeper into the lines around his eyes. He doesn't turn as you approach, as if he felt your presence on the wind. "They're gone," he says. "For now." Howe is chasing Washington up the coast. He thinks the city is broken, that he can leave a skeleton force to keep the rot from healing. Quote, "Is he wrong?" you ask, standing beside him. Samuel finally turns to you, and the change in him is profound. The frantic energy is gone, replaced by a deep, weary calm. The perfectionist who saw the world as a set of equations has been forced to account for too many irrational variables. "He's wrong about the rot," Samuel says. "The city isn't an equation, Penina. It's a living thing. It can be wounded, it can get sick. But it heals. Because of people like Mary. Because they decide to plant gardens in the ashes." He looks down at his own hands, the engineer's hands that have now known the grime of gangrene and the kick of a pistol. "I spent years learning how to build walls to keep death out, but the real walls, the ones that matter, they're built on the inside." Quote, "And Barnabas Hill, you ask, the name, a cold stone in the quiet air?" Samuel's gaze hardens. "Disappeared. The rangers who interrogated the prisoners say he was badly wounded, but his men got him away before the main retreat. Some say he was sent back to Hesse in disgrace. Others say he's with Howe's command, nursing his shoulder and his pride." He looks back at the water. He's not gone. He's a loose thread. A man like that, a man whose pride is rooted in his perfect, cold control, to have it shattered by a handful of rebels in the dark? He won't forget that. He won't forget you. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the river breeze. The war with Barnabas Hill was never about territory or tactics. It was about philosophy, and that war is not over. He is out there, a ghost of a future you know is still waiting, a man who will have learned from his anger, who will have hardened it back into a colder, sharper, more patient weapon. You and Samuel stand in a comfortable silence, two veterans sharing the unspoken language of a battle survived. He is no longer trying to solve you, and you are no longer resisting his logic. You have become two sides of the same coin, two necessary parts of the same whole. The builder and the storyteller, the one who tends the body, and the one who tends the soul. In the weeks that follow, you watch the city begin its slow, arduous process of becoming. The scars remain, a permanent reminder of the price. The empty lots where houses once stood are a constant presence. The graveyard behind the church has rows of new, unmarked mounds of earth. Every family has a story of loss, a private ghost that will sit at their table forever. But alongside the scars, new life emerges. The sound of hammers is no longer anxious and frantic, but steady and rhythmic. The laughter of the children, once a rare and precious thing, is now a common sound in the streets. They play games of revolution, of rangers and Hessians, their innocent shouts echoing the real screams that are still fresh in your memory. They're the first generation to inherit the story you all have written in blood and fire. You find yourself on a hill at the northern edge of the island, looking down at the city spread out before you. The setting sun paints the sky in hues of orange and deep purple, colors of a bruise that is beginning to heal. From here you can see it all. The glint of light on the new roof of the warehouse hospital. The dark, fertile patch of Mary's garden. The stone circle of Samuel's well, a hub from which the life of the city radiates. You see the gaps, the wounds, the absences. But you also see the connections, the stubborn threads of community rewoven, the enduring structure of a people who refuse to break. The words of Thomas Paine, the words that started this journey, on a hot summer evening on the common, come back to you. O ye that love mankind, ye that dare oppose, not only the tyranny, but the tyrant, stand forth. You had thought, then, that the words were the point, but you were wrong. The words were just the spark. The fire was the summer that followed. It was the terror in a child's eyes in a dark cellar. It was the quiet dignity of a woman sharing her last ration. It was the desperate courage of a wronged man running into the night. It was the gangrenous stench of a makeshift hospital and the clean, cold logic of a new well. This is the legacy of 1776. It is not a clean, triumphant narrative written by men in powdered wigs. It is a messy, complicated, and deeply personal story of survival. It is the grim certainty that freedom has a cost so high it will break your heart, and the infuriating, defiant optimism that insists on paying it anyway. It is the knowledge that a new dawn is not a gift. It is a struggle. It is a garden to be tended, a wall to be built, a story to be told, again and again, to the children who will inherit the scarred but sacred ground. The tyrant is not just a king across the ocean, and the tyranny is not just a tax on tea. The tyrant is despair. The tyranny is the belief that you are alone. a single weak stream. And you have learned, in the crucible of this terrible, glorious summer, that the only way to stand forth against it is to become a river. You walk down from the hill as the last light bleeds from the sky, leaving the horizon a deep, bruised purple. The city below is settling into a quiet it has not known for months. It is not the dead silence of fear, but the living quiet of a household at the end of a long, exhausting day. The air is cool and clean, and for the first time you can smell the simple, honest scent of wood smoke from 100 hearths, without the acrid undertone of cannon fire or burning homes. You move through the streets, a ghost of a different sort now, no longer a hunter or a warrior, but a witness to the aftermath. You are a part of the city's memory, and its memory is a part of you. You find Samuel sitting on the low stone wall of the well, the one he built with such desperate, logical fury. He is not working. He holds no diagrams, no tools. He is simply watching the stars begin to prick the velvet darkness, a faint, silver dust scattered across the sky. He looks up as you approach, a tired but genuine smile touching his lips. In his hand he holds a folded sheet of paper, its edges worn from being passed from hand to hand. "I was hoping I would see you," he says, his voice low. "A dispatch rider came through this afternoon. Not with military orders. With letters. News from Philadelphia." He taps the paper in his hand. "This found its way to me. A copy, from the wife of that lawyer from Massachusetts, Adams, was addressed to him, but the man who sent it to me thought, well, he thought the sentiments might be appreciated by those of us who remained here." He unfolds it carefully, as if it were a fragile relic. "I think he was right. I think he meant it for you as much as for me." He angles the paper to catch the light from a nearby tavern window, and you lean closer, the two of you sharing the small pool of light, a quiet island in the deepening night. He begins to read, his voice steady, giving weight to the elegant, looping script. "My dearest friend," he begins, the words of Abigail Adams filling the space between you. "The great business of the Congress I know must engage your every moment, but I cannot forbear to write, for my mind is in a constant state of anxiety and apprehension. We have a declaration, a fine and soaring thing, but a nation is not built of words alone, is it? I look upon our own small farm. I see the worry in the faces of our neighbors, and I wonder at the cost of this grand experiment. Every day brings news of some new trial, some hardship borne by a family whose name will never be recorded in the histories they are helping to write." Quote, Samuel pauses, and you see your own thoughts reflected in his tired eyes. He continues reading. "I think of the women, who must manage house and farm while their husbands are away, who must teach their children what it means to be free while their own hearts are constricted with fear. I think of the mothers who have given their sons, the wives who have given their husbands, to this cause. Their private grief is the soil in which this new republic must grow, and I pray to God it is a fertile soil and not one of barren sacrifice. We are told we are fighting for a new order of things. I hope, in this new order, that we will not forget the quiet, unsung contributions of those who have held the world together while the men were busy tearing it apart. This work of building a nation, my friend, is a harder and more delicate thing than winning a war. It is the work of a lifetime. May we have the strength for it." He finishes reading, and the silence that follows is profound. The letter is a bridge. It connects your small, brutal war in the alleys of New York to the grand, philosophical debates in Philadelphia. It confirms that the fear, the doubt, the worry over the human cost, these are not your private burdens. They are the shared anxieties of a nation being born, felt by a farmer's wife in Massachusetts as keenly as by a native warrior in a besieged city. The words have given a name to the truth you have felt in your bones all summer, that history is not a grand parade, but a collection of quiet, profound, and often painful personal sacrifices. Samuel carefully refolds the letter and hands it to you. "She sees it," he says softly. "The real structure of things." You take the worn paper, its texture, a comfort in your hand. You give him a nod of thanks, a deep and unspoken understanding passing between you. There is nothing more that needs to be said. You turn and walk toward the small room you have taken in a boarding house, the letter tucked safely away. The city sleeps around you. The walk is slow, your footsteps soft on the familiar stones. You pass the dark shape of the warehouse, no longer a house of the dying, but a storehouse now, filled with the provisions that will see the city through the winter. You pass Mary's house, And even in the darkness you can feel the quiet power of the turned earth in her garden, a promise sleeping under the soil. A single light burns in an upper window, and you hear the faint humming notes of a lullaby, a mother soothing a child, weaving a fragile shield of song against the darkness. This sound, more than any victory cry, is the sound of peace. It is the sound of a future being stitched together one quiet moment at a time. You reach your room. It is small, spare, with a narrow cot and a single window that looks out onto a sliver of starry sky. You don't light a candle. The moonlight is enough. You lie down, the rough blanket a welcome weight, your body sinking into the mattress with a weariness that goes deeper than muscle, deeper than bone. It is the weariness of a soul that has been stretched to its limit, and has, somehow, not broken. You close your eyes, and the images of the summer begin to drift through your mind, not as sharp, painful flashes, but as softened, distant echoes. You see the crowd on the common, their faces flushed with revolutionary glee, their cheers for common sense, so loud and full of certainty, and you feel a strange, gentle pity for their innocence, for the selves they were before they learned the true meaning of the words they celebrated. You see the family in the cellar, huddled in the damp darkness, their faces masks of terror. But the image wavers, and you see the little girl's face as she listened to the story of the clever rabbit, her fear momentarily forgotten, replaced by a flicker of wonder, a tiny seed of hope, planted in a landscape of ruin. You see Samuel, not as the angry, frustrated man in the dying hospital, but as he was tonight, sitting by his well, his face illuminated by the quiet light of shared understanding. You see his hands, which once held only diagrams and equations, now able to change a bandage, fire a pistol, and fold a letter full of a woman's fears. He is a structure that has been tested by the storm and rebuilt, stronger and more complete than before. You see Barnabas Hill, the Hessian. His face appears, not as the calm, calculating professional, nor as the snarling beast of the raid. The anger and the stillness have both faded. All that is left is a ghost, a hollowed-out man clutching a wounded shoulder, his eyes filled with the profound, bewildering shock of being defeated by something he could not measure. He is a memory now, a testament to the fact that even the most perfect systems of control can be broken by the stubborn, illogical force of the human heart. He recedes into the darkness, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. The tolling of the funeral bell echoes faintly, a final, fading reminder of the cost, of the empty spaces at 1,000 tables, of the names that will never be recorded. But the sound is no longer a torment. It is a baseline, a deep and resonant note against which the newer, more hopeful music of the city is composed. It is the price of the quiet that now holds you. Your breathing deepens, slowing to the rhythm of the sleeping city. The sharp edges of memory soften and blur, the roar of the cannons fading into the soft rush of your own blood, the screams of the dying dissolving into the gentle sigh of the wind outside your window. You are a river, and you are flowing toward a deep and tranquil sea. You are tired. You have paid the bill. And as you drift into the profound, dreamless, and well-earned peace of sleep, you know with a calm and final certainty that you have survived.